This is every League of Legends World Championship explained in 28 minutes and 30 seconds. Season 1, 2011. Held in front of a tiny crowd of just a few hundred fans at DreamHack in Jönköping, Sweden, this event is pretty much unrecognizable compared to the World Championship as we know it today. For starters, it wasn't even called the World Championship, just the Season 1 Championship. Only 8 teams were invited to the event, 3 from North America, 3 from Europe, and 2 from Southeast Asia. The whole thing was played across just 3 days in June of 2011, a far cry from the month-long country-hopping roadshow that we see today. It's also the only Worlds to have double elimination. That's right, the very first Worlds had a lower bracket way back in 2011, and there hasn't been one since. Some people don't consider this a legitimate World Championship due to there being no representation from China or Korea, but since Riot recognizes it, we're going to recognize it too. Watching today, the game quality is almost as poor as the quality of the footage on YouTube. The basic roles of the game weren't decided on yet, with EU teams gaining an advantage by discovering that the best way to play the game was actually to put an AD carry and a support in the bottom lane rather than just running 2 bruisers like the NA teams did. The best American team, TSM, only managed 3rd, which is also their best ever finish at Worlds. In the end, Fnatic took down against all authority 2-1 to become the first ever world champions.
Fnatic going to win the Season 1 championship.
They were led by a young Spanish player named Xpeke, and yes, he did play top lane in this tournament and not mid. The Summoners Cup didn't exist yet, so Fnatic were just handed a big novelty check for $50,000 instead. The late Polish mid laner Shushei was awarded tournament MVP, but Fnatic weren't given their world skins until a few years later. The small crowd size, scuff production, and lo-fi vibes of the tournament led to fans claiming that the event had actually taken place in Freak's basement. But despite the memes, the esports experiment was a massive success, peaking at over 200,000 viewers on Twitch, which was massive for the time. So, as cursed as this event was, it gave Riot the green light to invest fully into esports, and invest they did. Season 2 Worlds, 2012. Everything got bigger in Season 2, from venues to prize pool to the number of teams attending. The field was expanded from 8 teams to 12, giving 2 seeds each to China and Korea, and 1 seed to Taiwan. With the game still young and the competitive order of the regions still up in the air, there were a bunch of teams from all around the world in with a legitimate shot at winning the title. Would Western teams be able to defend against the likes of Korea and China now that they had their own servers? The beauty of this tournament was that nobody knew for sure. Things were much more polished than Season 1. If you showed this broadcast to someone who had just started watching League in the last couple years, they'd be able to tell that it was Worlds, but that didn't mean there weren't issues. For example, the stage looked like this. Do you see the problem? The big screen for the audience to watch was placed directly behind the players, meaning that if they wanted to, there was nothing stopping players from just looking over their shoulders to get a live look at the minimap, and many of them actually did. 5 different players were investigated for cheating by Riot, but only one of them, Woong from Azubu Frost, was found to have actually gained any advantage from it and was fined $30,000. This sort of thing should never be possible and is a no-brainer for productions today, but back then Riot were still figuring all this stuff out on the fly, which is pretty emblematic of the whole event. Season 2 Worlds was also infamous for tech delays, with the quarterfinal matchup between CLG EU and World Elite being delayed for almost 8 hours due to network issues, featuring many pauses and multiple remakes. It got so bad that they had to pack up for the night and come back the next day to finish the series. During the long breaks, the broadcast would play Silver Scrapes on loop constantly for hours, which kickstarted the tradition of playing Silver Scrapes before a Game 5. But the team to win it all weren't heavy hitters like CLG EU, World Elite, Azubu Frost, or Moscow 5. It was the Taipei Assassins who came out of nowhere and shocked Frost 3-1 in the finals, taking home the grand prize of $1 million. Technically becoming the first team to ever hoist the Summoners Cup and to be given world skins. People loved watching their underdog run, and the tournament was a massive success despite the setbacks, drawing in a massive new audience, which included me. This was the first League event that I ever watched, and it was 6 months before I actually picked up the game.
There is no damage coming out from Azubu Frost. Taipei Assassins to do no. The shockwave! Full team comes, Devlon BB picks up a kill on James there. Shy goes down, Mad Life getting skipped. Vrianne picks up another kill. Taipei Assassins are the Season 2 World Champions. They picked up $1 million and the Summoners Cup.
Season 3 Worlds, 2013. Worlds was held in LA again, this time with the finals taking place at the Staples Center. The tournament was expanded again to 14 teams, and the top seeds from Korea, China, NA, and the LMS were awarded automatic quarterfinal bids based off their performance at All-Stars, with everyone else having to fight it out in 2 groups of 5. But let's be honest, 2013 was the year of Faker. It was his very first Worlds after exploding onto the scene in his rookie year. After rolling through the group stage, SKT were tested in the semifinals by Najin Black Sword, but they came out on top in 5 games, setting up the first clash of his career with his longtime rival Uzi. Season 1 didn't feature an opening ceremony, while Season 2 had a basic but relatively clean orchestral performance. Season 3, on the other hand, did give us something resembling a World's opening ceremony for the very first time, and it was interesting. The finals, however, was not interesting, as SKT bulldozed Uzi and Royal Club 3-0 to claim the very first world title for both Faker and Korea, as well as creating the first of many SKT skin lines.
The Nexus turrets are potentially going to go down. This could be a 20-minute game for SK Telecom. They will be the Season 3 World Champions here at the Staples Center.
Worlds 2014. 2014 was what I'd consider to be the first modern World Championship. Warriors, the very first Worlds anthem, released, and Imagine Dragons performed it live in the first proper opening ceremony in front of a massive crowd in Seoul World Cup Stadium. 2 more teams were added, bringing the total up to 16. It was also the start of the group stage era, with 4 groups of 4 teams playing a double round robin best of 1 into a single elimination knockout stage. Lastly, season was dropped from the name in favor of the actual year of the tournament. 2014 was a wretched year for EU, with 0 teams advancing from the group stage due to Kaboom Esports' shock upset over Alliance, giving C9 a free ticket to the quarterfinals, and Svenskaren's ban removing SK Gaming from the running and clearing a path for TSM. But nobody could stand up to the 2 powerhouse Korean sister teams, Samsung Blue and Samsung White, who had spent 2014 innovating the modern macro game as we know it today. Despite losing both best of 5s they played earlier in the year, Samsung White overcame their sister team in the semis by demolishing them 3-0. They then rolled into the finals and demolished Uzi and Royal Club 3-1. Mata locked in tournament MVP, and Samsung White's Worlds run is still regarded by many as the most dominant of all time.
The second Nexus turret ball, they're going to focus in on the Nexus itself, and Samsung White are the 2014 World Champions.
Worlds 2015. The 2015 World Championship had perhaps the most chaotic meta of all time. The Juggernaut patch had thrown everything out of whack, with Darius being the most picked top laner and Mordekaiser being nearly permabanned due to a bizarre mini rework that made him disgustingly OP in the bot lane and let him walk Dragon around the map like a Pokemon. Europe bounced all the way back and had a great year, with both Fnatic and Origin making runs to the semifinals, while North America had an awful year, despite C9's 3-0 Week 1, combining to go 0-10 in Week 2. Not to be outdone, tournament favorites and China's #1 seed LGD completely collapsed as well and failed to advance. Unfortunately, the magic ran out for Europe in the semis, with both teams getting dismantled 3-0 by their Korean counterparts. After missing out on Worlds in 2014, Faker and SKT came back with a vengeance, dropping just 1 game in the finals versus KOO Tigers on the way to their 2nd World Championship. Marin would win MVP, and Faker looked immortal on his iconic rise, a pick that nobody else was playing at the time. If you want to learn more, we made a video about it.
He's waiting to TP somewhere. He's going to bottom now.
Just going into the river brush, but it's going to be Kuro getting dropped immediately. How did he even think he could take that fight? KOO Tigers are falling. SKT will be your first ever 2-time world champions!
Worlds 2016. Like 2015, the 2016 World Championship was full of upsets, with Brazil's INTZ knocking off LPL 1 seed EDG in the very first game of the tournament. And while they didn't do anything else after that and lost their next 5 games, that wasn't the case in Group A, where Albus Nox Luna, an international wildcard team from Russia, came out of nowhere to eliminate both CLG and G2, and were 1 tiebreaker win away from beating out the ROX Tigers for the first seed in the group.
All these minions are hitting the void link still. The Nexus is down.
He's
The greatest time.
He's getting it.
They did it.
Oh my God, they did it.
ANX just took down the Rocks Tigers.
Group B wasn't very interesting outside of C9's 70-minute win versus Flash Wolves, but their North American counterparts TSM had a much worse time in Group D, finishing 3-3 and failing to make it out after Doublelift's infamous Lucian throw. But in Group C, H2K were able to come back from a rough Week 1 to take first place over EG. If you've ever wondered where this clip of Yanko's yelling came from, wonder no more.
Fender a little bit too low in this one. It is just
He stole it.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
The knockout stage draw for this Worlds was pretty funny, with the top side of the bracket being a gauntlet, while the bottom side was basically Weenie Hut Juniors. Samsung Galaxy clapped up C9 3-0 before clapping up H2K 3-0. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bracket, SKT and Rocks Tigers would go head-to-head in an epic 5-game semi-final match that remains to this day one of the best series ever played. As the third seed that had to run the regional gauntlet just to make it to Worlds, nobody was expecting Samsung Galaxy to put up much of a fight in the finals. Instead, we got the first ever 5-game finals in the history of Worlds, and it was long, like really long. The average game time of the finals was 50 minutes and 31 seconds. But in the end, SKT came out on top and Faker was crowned MVP.
The curtain call is a fitting end to the World Championship as Samsung Galaxy are being dove under their tower. SK Telecom have overcome every challenge. They are the undisputed best team in the world. The SKT reign continues. They win their third World Championship.
Worlds 2017. 2017 saw the addition of the play-in stage, raising the total number of teams from 16 to 24. And of the 3 major region play-in teams, all of them would advance to the knockout stage. The first of these teams, C9, would make it out of a group that was pretty much a carbon copy of their group from a year before. SKT was on another level outside of a random loss to the LMS team in their group, while C9 was the least bad of the remaining teams. The second of these play-in teams, World Elite, won Group D outright, while TSM managed to blow yet another 2-1 start, finish 3-3, and fail to make it out of groups. But the third play-in team was the most interesting. After starting 0-4, Fnatic went on an insane 4-0 run, including tiebreakers, to take the second seed out of Group B. The fourth play-in team, 1907 Fenerbahce Esports, went 0-6, but we don't talk about them. After barely scraping by G2 in the groups, Samsung took on tournament favorites Longzhu, who were fresh off a 6-0 group stage, and immediately dispatched them 3-0, before taking down WE in the semis to make it back to the finals. On the other side of the bracket, SKT just barely survived 2 iconic 5-game series, first versus Misfits and then versus RNG, setting up the first and only finals rematch in Worlds history. The finals took place in Beijing's iconic Bird's Nest, the largest venue in Worlds history and the site of the iconic Elder Dragon entrance during the opening ceremony. Samsung won a commanding 3-0 in the finals, putting an end to the first SKT dynasty, and his catch on Faker earned Ruler the very first finals MVP in Worlds history.
Samsung Galaxy push mid first.
As you can see, the flash ult left. They've caught Faker. They've got the CC. The mid laner is down. The unkillable Demon King has done just that. The upset is complete as the kills come through. The SKT dynasty is over. All hail the new kings. Samsung Galaxy, your 2017 World Champions.
Worlds 2018. After 5 years of total domination, 2018 was the year Korea fell, at least for a while. Despite running back the same roster that won Worlds in 2017, Samsung, now rebranded as Gen G, became the first Korean team ever to fall in the group stage. LCK number 1 seed KT Rolster lost an intense 5-game quarterfinal series to China's Invictus Gaming, and NA's Cloud9 shocked a Freak of Freaks 3-0, giving NA their first top 4 since 2011. To put the icing on the cake, G2 decided they wanted to get in on the action too, and upset Uzi and an RNG squad fresh off an MSI victory 3-2 in their quarterfinal series. Now, if you've been paying attention, that means that we had a staggering 3 Western teams in the top 4, the most there had been since before Korea and China even had servers in Season 1. IG with 3-0 G2, while Fnatic with 3-0 C9, a fitting team to make EU's first world final in 7 years. Fnatic wouldn't win a second title, however, getting dismantled 3-0 and giving China their very first world title. The first time since 2012 that a non-Korean team had won. This year also gave us Rise and the debut of KDA, which looked almost as beautiful as this photo taken during the match. If you want to find out more about it, click the card at the top of your screen. Worlds 2019. Worlds returned to Europe in 2019, which was pretty fitting considering it seemed like this was finally going to be their year. Despite initial doubts about Perkz' role swap to AD carry, G2's iconic 2019 roster had been having an insane year so far, winning Spring, MSI, and Summer, putting them on the edge of an unprecedented golden road. All 3 EU teams made it out of groups, while all 3 NA teams failed to advance. And while Splyce and Fnatic fell in the quarterfinals, G2 beat Damwon Gaming before knocking off Faker and SKT 3-1 in the semis to send EU to their second World Finals in 2 years.
But Perkz is coming in. This is his hero moment. If he wants to turn this fight in favor of team, this could be the game-defining moment. Faker is gone. Teddy's next on the list. There's no way he can duel Yasuo. Amada's coming in, but he's just walking into the meat grinder of Perkz. Con, can he do it? They've done enough. They've done it. G2, Con, can he get it done? He can't. The Vladimir. They can't do it. This is it. The greatest team in the history of League of Legends, taken down by the greatest team Europe has ever produced.
They'd be facing off against China's #1 seed FPX, an extremely weird team led by their mid laner Duenby, who was regularly pulling out stuff like Malphite, Kayle, Renekton, Rumble, Sion, and even Nautilus mid. Sadly, G2 couldn't overcome Europe's LPL demons and were swept 3-0 like Fnatic before them. Tian got Finals MVP, and China got their second consecutive Worlds victory. Worlds 2020. 2020 was a weird year for everyone, League pros included, with all stages of the event before finals being played in China without any fans in attendance. Heavy favorites Damwon Gaming and Top Esports rolled through groups, with Fnatic and G2 making it out, while TSM suffered the ultimate humiliation of a 0-6 off the back of the infamous 9-man sweep.
If TSM can't win this, what will they?
Things were more interesting in the knockout stage. G2 showed they still had some magic left in the tank by 3-0ing Gen G, and Fnatic nearly upset Top Esports before being cursed by Shox.
It starts with success.
In the semis, upstart LPL 3rd seed Suning were starting to make some noise. Led by their star rookie top laner Bin, they took out JDG 3-1 in the semis before doing the same to Top Esports a week later to make finals out of nowhere. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bracket, G2 was no match for the sheer might of Damwon, and neither were Suning, getting rolled 3-1 in the finals, with Canyon picking up finals MVP. However, Suning were able to make history in their one win, with Bin securing the first ever pentakill in a World Finals.
Damwon Gaming will shut down Suning. Damwon will silence Shanghai. And Damwon Gaming are your season 2020 World Champions.
Worlds 2021. 2021 Worlds had an insane group stage, with 6 total tiebreakers played, the most of any World Championship. In Group A, Damwon Gaming were a mile ahead of everybody else and looking to be the first repeat champions since the SKT dynasty. But it was a complete mess below them, with C9, Rogue, and FPX in a 3-way tie at 2 and 4. North America actually won some tiebreaker games for once, and C9 somehow lived to fight another day. This was the biggest tie in the history of Worlds for approximately 72 hours. No, your eyes do not deceive you. Gen G, the Mad Lions, LNG, and TL all finished in a 4-way tie at 3 and 3, necessitating a 4-team best-of-1 tiebreaker bracket where Gen G and Mad came out on top. This allowed Team Liquid to go 3 and 3 and finish last in their group at the same time, a truly patriotic act. In the knockout stage, Damwon were on a mission not just to win back-to-back, but to make sure that fan favorite top laner Khan won a world championship before his mandatory military service the next year. On the other side of the bracket, EDG went on a run, taking down both RNG and Gen G 3-2 to advance their first ever world final. In the finals, Khan's dreams of World's glory were denied, as EDG once again came out on top in a close 3-2 series, with Scout winning finals MVP as China took their 3rd World Championship in 4 years. Worlds 2022. 2022 was a step back for the West. 4 years after believing the gap was fully closed in 2018, it looked wider than ever after the group stage, with only one Western team, Rogue, making it out of groups before being promptly bounced 3-0 in the quarters. and they needed all the help the Gigabyte Marines could give to get them there.
Levi's up in 1 second, but the Toronto with the new wave. Miller with Katie, getting behind the stunts. Wayward still on it. Wayward still hitting. Stays alive.
Now it's time to talk about T1. In the 5 years since their last World Finals appearance, T1 had rebranded and rebuilt their roster, creating a monster by putting 4 talented young players, Zeus, Owner, Gumayushi, and Keria, around Faker with one goal: win Worlds. After dispatching RNG in the quarterfinals and JDG in the semis, Faker seemed destined to return to glory, but standing in their way was a team nobody expected to be here. Coming in as the LCK's 4th seed with the 3rd worst winning percentage of any team that has ever qualified for Worlds, nobody was expecting much from DRX. Then they proceeded to go on the greatest run in League of Legends history. A band of misfits nobody really wanted, they rallied around their captain Deft, a legendary ADC who had just one chance left to win Worlds before joining the military. Or at least that's what we thought at the time. The problem was, Deft seemed cursed to never make it past the quarterfinals, failing to do so 5 times in a row, and for a while, it looked like it was going to be 6. Facing off against defending world champions EDG, a team that Deft used to play on featuring 2 of his former teammates, Game 2 was on a knife's edge, with DRX on the cusp of tying the series at 2 games apiece when this happened.
And he's gonna get the inhibitor! The inhibitor is back up! What? He cannot get the stun. No way! Oh my god, Deft, no! The game was in your hands, Deft!
This play should have broken their spirits and ended their season, but against all odds, Deft and DRX rallied, winning the next 3 games and reverse sweeping EDG, sending Deft to his first semifinal since his time on Samsung Blue in 2014. In the semifinals, DRX would face off against Korea's 1 seed Gen G, another team Deft technically used to play for back in their days as Samsung that sported Chovy and Doran, more of Deft's former teammates. DRX hadn't taken a single game off Gen G in all of 2022, so naturally they won the series handily 3-1 off the back of their mid laner Zeka, who had never even made it to a regional playoffs before this year, catching fire and having the tournament of his life. So Deft found himself in his first ever World Final, 10 years into his career with just 1 shot to win, facing off against not only his former protege Keria, but Faker, his former high school classmate that had overshadowed him for his entire career. To be honest, there's not enough time in this video to do the narrative surrounding this final justice. We just barely scratched the surface here. DRX's run seemed closer to the plot of a movie than something that could really happen, and it seemed like T1 was going to give them a reality check. But despite T1 being the heavy favorites, the series delivered, going 5 intense games as DRX refused to say die. And in the end, despite many setbacks, Deft got his storybook ending, with DRX clutching it out in Game 5.
He's trying to zone him away. Owner goes in. Owner is down. The Drake secured. T1's jungle. T1's going to the base. They're going to the Nexus. Can they do it in time? Kingen comes back. Elder Drake at the ready. But what can he do? Q3. No damage just yet. Elder Drake. The execute. Zeus is down. DRX. Hold on. Keria wants to hit the wave. Kingen goes to the Whirlwinder. Gumayushi is dead. They have been doubted. They have been discounted. They have been dismissed. But DRX are your 2022 World Champions.
Worlds 2023. This year saw perhaps the tournament's largest ever format shakeup. The group stage was removed entirely and replaced with the Swiss stage, where teams are all seeded into one big group and play random opponents with the same record until a team wins 3 times and advances, or loses 3 times and is eliminated. The only Western team to emerge from this bloodbath in 2023 was the LCS's NRG, who upset G2, but they were swiftly bounced by Weibo Gaming in the quarterfinals. Speaking of Weibo, they came out of nowhere as China's 4th seed and made a run all the way to the finals by stunning heavy hitters BLG in the semis, giving the Shy a surprise shot at the 2nd World Championship. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bracket, everyone was watching JDG. The tournament favorites by a landslide, they were on the edge of completing the Golden Road and had already won Spring, MSI, and Summer. After BLG took down Gen G and JDG took down KT, It was clear that Faker and T1 were going to have to go through an LPL gauntlet if they wanted to win Worlds for the first time since 2016. T1 also weren't looking nearly as strong as they had been a year ago, with Faker coming off a wrist injury that had forced him to miss half the summer split. Despite T1 taking out LNG 3-0, JDG still seemed unstoppable. But when the lights are brightest at Worlds, T1 always deliver.
Stays on the flank.
Stays on the side. TP coming in. Faker looking to make the play. He gets Ruler. Owner goes in. And again, the combos are clean. The hostile takeover is damn well hostile. T1 looking to leave no survivors alive.
At this point, T1 had beaten BLG in Swiss, LNG in the quarterfinals, and JDG in the semis, leaving just Weibo Gaming standing between them and glory. What resulted was an extremely quick 3-0 by T1, securing Faker his first world title in 7 years and his 4th overall.
It was 7 years since their loss, a decade since their first. The SKT legacy has been reignited. T1 will be your 2023 World Champions.
Worlds 2024. 2024 seemed like it would be a battle between perennial contenders Gen G from the LCK and BLG from the LPL, who had faced off in MSI finals just a few months prior. The Swiss stage returned in 2024 and things stayed chaotic. BLG started 1-2 and just barely escaped to knockouts, while FlyQuest became the only Western team to escape, making EU 0-2 in the Swiss era. BLG seemed to find their form in the knockout stage and breeze their way to the finals. Gen G, on the other hand, came back to earth, just barely surviving a 5-game series with FlyQuest and looking surprisingly mortal heading into the semifinals versus T1. Despite being the defending world champions, T1 were not supposed to be here. Coming in as Korea's 4th seed, they were just 1 game away from missing Worlds entirely. Faker in particular was struggling, showing probably the worst form of his entire career. But as always, T1 found another gear at Worlds and they took down Gen G 3-1 to head to their 3rd straight World Final. Despite his struggles, Faker was not messing around in the finals. When T1 went down 2-1, he put the team on his back and delivered a clutch performance on Sylas. Then, in the deciding Game 5, he pulled out Galio and saved the game for his team more than once.
Oh, Sanchez joins the fight! Elko with the stopwatch, Faker in the middle of them all, and it seems like death may have arrived, and his name is Faker! He's here for your lives! The rest of T1 begins to collapse. Faker's gonna fall as he pulls the stopwatch, manages to buy himself a second. Owner here to save his mid laner once again, and Faker still stands!
Faker was awarded Finals MVP and won back-to-back titles for the 2nd time in his career, bringing his total up to 5. And that brings us to today. The 15th World Championship kicks off on October 14th with a redesigned Summoners Cup going back to its roots. Due to regional consolidation, the tournament has been downsized to just 17 teams, and the play-ins have shrunk to just a single best of 5 between China's 4th seed, an IG roster sporting both Rookie and the Shy, and Korea's 4th seed T1, who are once again coming in on the back foot after losing Zeus in the offseason. Either of these teams winning again seems impossible, but if the last 15 years have taught us anything, it's that once the tournament starts, it's really anybody's game.